Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the Box Hard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
It's the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the Box Hard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 317 of the Box Hard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger Fast Eddie Chambers. How you doing, Eddie?
I'm good, my man. How you?
I'm doing good, my friend. Always good when speaking with you. Let's dive.
Buffer.
Yeah, Joe Buffer. Yeah. Well, listen. He's on the. Remember, he's on the intro every week. You know, at the very beginning.
Oh shit, for
real? Yeah. Have you never listened to the show?
No, I've listened. I just never. I don't know. I just don't. I don't know. I'm thinking of.
Yeah, on the intro, it starts the very beginning of the podcast. You know, he says, "Hi, I'm Michael Buffer, and you're listening to the Box Hard Podcast."
And then he said, "Yeah, my bad."
Yeah, then the intro rolls in, and obviously you've got off the top of my head, I can't even remember who speaks on the intro. I think it's Mikey Garcia. Used to be Malik Scott. He's not on there anymore. You got Regis Prograis, Michael Hunter, and Charlie Edwards, I believe. So
you got me on there, so you must be really, really desperate for some people.
Don't be silly. Everyone that's on the intro are good friends.
No doubt.
Let's dive straight into the review part of the show. Going to start here last Friday, November the 5th at the Ulster Hall in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Over here, Sean McComb with a win, now 13-1, a points win over 8 against Ronnie Clark, 21-6 now with 2 draws. Ronnie Clark seems like his best days are well and truly behind him. He was obviously out the ring for a long time. I remember at one point he was down, on money and stuff. At one point he was trying to sell his belts on eBay to pay for Christmas presents for his kids. Very bad situation. Obviously he's back to boxing now, but that break where he was out the ring, it's just taking it out of him, and he doesn't seem the same guy. You know, his hair as well is not as good as it used to be. He used to turn up with like red cornrows and stuff, but no, it's all in the past now, and he doesn't seem to be the same fighter, unfortunately, because he was a fantastic fighter domestically. I mean, God, I was there when he beat Zelfa Barrett, took his O. He had hard fights with Martin J. Ward, stuff like that. He was a great fighter. Elsewhere on that card, Lewis Crocker now 14-0, a TKO in round 7 against Artem Haroyan, now 17-3 with a draw. Padraig McCrory now 13-0, a TKO in the second round against Celso Neves, who's now 8-2 with a draw. That one for the WBC International Silver Super Middleweight title. Moving out now to the Virgin Hotels Las Vegas in Nevada, USA. Over here, this one was on Sky Sports. It was on ESPN Plus. Let's start with the undercard. Actually, let's skip that. Not much really on the undercard. The main event, what an unbelievable fight. Friend of the show, Mikaela Mayer, now 16-0, now the unified IBF and WBO female world super featherweight champion. She dethroned Maeva Hamadouche, the former IBF champion until the other night. She's now 22-2 with 18 KOs, still such a respectable record. What an unbelievable fight it was. I mean, I didn't think Mikaela Mayer had it in her to fight in a phone booth for 10 2-minute rounds. It wasn't her style. She could not keep the very aggressive, strong French policewoman off of her at all. So she didn't really have a choice. It was not the way she wanted to fight, but it wasn't up to her. She just could not keep Hamadouche off of her, and because of that, she had to stand there and trade in the pocket the entire fight. The referee barely had to break them up. I believe they threw over 1,000 punches. It was one of the best fights you will see all year, female and male boxing combined. It's one of the it is the best female fight I've ever seen. A close one is Katie Taylor against Delphine Persoon, number 1. But this was unbelievable. If you haven't seen it, forget about the 1 minute between rounds. If you haven't seen it, go and watch this fight. It's only going to take 20 minutes of your time. I guarantee you will not regret it. Unbelievable. And wow. I've watched it twice. Mikaela Mayer, friend of the show, over the moon for her. The scorecards were horrific, it has to be said. 8-2, 9-1, and 10-0 on the scorecards. No one had it that wide. That was disgraceful to Hamadouche. But I have to say, what an unbelievable fight. I can't hype it up enough. There's no way you can watch that fight and say women's boxing's boring or women's boxing's not as good as men's boxing. You won't see action like that in 99% of male boxing fights. It was unbelievable. I'm so happy for Mikaela Mayer, and I cannot wait for her to come over here and box Terry Harper, and I hope she wins that as well, by the way. I might annoy a few people saying that, but that is my honest opinion. I'm saying it on the podcast. Moving out now to the Hala Sportowa over here in Poland. Krzysztof Wlodarczyk, former world champion, now 60-4 with a draw. He picked up win number 60, a TKO in round 4 against Maximiliano Gomez, who's now 29-6. A horrific mismatch there. Moving out now to the Echo Arena in Liverpool. This one was a Ultimate Boxer 3-round tournament thing. Again, it is quite confusing in which order the fights happened, but I'm going to try my best here. I think Tom Farrell boxed Ben Fields in the first round, and Tom Farrell beat Ben Fields on a split decision over 3. Then we saw Sean Mashadod take on Corey Gibbs, and I thought Sean Mashadod did enough to win. Everyone's a fan of Sean Mashadod. He's had a tough lockdown. He said it. He was crying in the interview before the little promo thing they did. He lost his wife, his kids, his house, I think his car during the pandemic. It was really tough on him. He was back after about 2 years out the ring, got in there with undefeated Corey Gibbs, lost. I thought he did enough to win, especially in round 2 and round 3, but no, he loses a split decision. Lee Appleyard was able to beat Levi Kinciona, I think his name is. That was on a split decision. So there's 3 split decisions in 3 of the first fights there. And Kane Gardner with a win over Nathan Bennett, unanimous. Then Kane Gardner went into the next round against Tom Farrell, and Tom Farrell won that one, a majority decision, after Gardner was dropped in the 3rd round. So Tom Farrell went through to the final, and Lee Appleyard lost to Corey Gibbs. Corey Gibbs looked better than he did in the first fight of the 3 he ended up having. He beat Lee Appleyard quite clearly. He wasn't very good in the first one. It was, like I say, I thought he lost to Sean Mashadod. He come out against Lee Appleyard. Could have been a tough fight, but he boxed really smart. And then the final between Tom Farrell and Corey Gibbs was able to win a split decision there. So quite entertaining seeing the guys fight over 3 rounds. Only one undefeated fighter went into the tournament out of the 8 fighters that entered it, and that same undefeated fighter emerged as the overall champion. He won the tournament. He's still undefeated. He's moved from 13-0 to 16-0 in one night. Good stuff there for Corey Gibbs. Moving out now to Birmingham at the Utilita Arena in West Midlands. Over here, a Frank Warren show topped by Zach Parker. We will be speaking to him later on. He's now 22-0 with 16 KOs. A TKO in round 4 against Marcus Morrison, who'd never been stopped. 24-5 his record now. Chris Eubank Jr. couldn't get him out of there. Zach Parker did it with brutal body shots in 4 rounds. He was down twice in the 2nd round. Morrison as well. It was for the WBO International Super Middleweight title. Zach Parker now mandatory for Canelo Alvarez. We will be speaking to him later on, like I say. On the undercard, Nathan Heaney with a win, now 14-0. A TKO in round 7 against Sladan Janjanin, who's now 30-9. Janjanin down in the 3rd round and in the 7th round. Bit of a weird one, really, because he was taking all these big shots and walking through them, smiling and all that, and then it all come crashing down very quickly. It was weird. Denzel Bentley returned with a big win, a TKO in round 3 against Sam Evans, who is now 10-2 with a draw. Denzel Bentley looking good again there, 15-1 with a draw, completely too good, really, for Sam Evans. It has to be said. You pretty much knew that going in. What else did we have on the card? Ryan Garner with a win against Pedro Gomez. Garner now 11-0. That one was on points over 8. Yeah, that's about it there. Moving out now to the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm going to come to you in a second, Eddie. Ray Vargas with a win now, 35-0. I'm still unsure of how he lost his WBC world title a couple of years ago. He was inactive, he lost the belt, he's still undefeated, one of the longest winning streaks out of all current fighters in the sport. A 10-round unanimous decision over Leonardo Baez, who's now 21-5. Anthony Durrell, I missed it, but I did see the finishing punch. What an uppercut. He moved to 34-2 with 2 draws. A 4th-round TKO over Marcos Hernandez, 15-5 with 2 draws. I'm going to come to you, Eddie. I hear you've unmuted yourself. You must have saw the fight. What an uppercut.
Anthony Durrell, it was interesting. The kid came to fight. He was not going to take it lying down, so when he came out, you could tell, and Durrell, the first, 10 or 15 seconds of the fight, he came out and just threw a barrage of big shots. And I think the way that Durrell was thinking, he was thinking, I'm going to walk in here, wipe this guy out and go around. But the kid came back, and he just kept fighting. And it was looking like he was going to make it a tough night. Durrell was actually I think I gave him the second round, to be honest, the other guy. And the first round, Durrell got it just, off of sheer ability of what he was able to do. But second round, I think the other kid got it. And it looked like he was going to make it a tough night. Durrell was winning, and he even in the third, I don't say it was a third round or 4th round stoppage. I can't remember.
Fourth round.
Fourth round, right. Because he came out again in the third and was giving him a little bit of work. That's what I was thinking. And it was like, damn, it was a little bit of a struggle for him to kind of to be dominant, because you would expect Anthony Durrell, being who he is and how he fights and his ability and all, with a guy who's 15-4, even if he'd been in there with a couple of tough guys, he shouldn't stack up. But he came to fight. But then in the 4th round, he threw I don't want to say a kind of somewhat of a lazy jab. He went right under it and literally winded up the uppercut. He did the bolo and ripped it. And if you watch it and you can hear the sound, that was a hell of a shot. I'm surprised he didn't shatter stuff in his head when he hit him with that shot. It was a crazy shot. That was one of the nastiest shots you'll see. You know what I mean? And perfectly timed too. So, and after he hit him with something like that in the I forget what round, it might have been the 2nd round, and maybe even in the 1st, but it didn't have the effect. It didn't land as clean. But man, did that one land. It was a hell of a shot. Hell of a shot. Trust me.
Yeah, I mean, I've only seen the replay of that fight. I didn't watch it in its entirety at all. But I want to say, and I've only seen the clip maybe once or twice. I didn't really study it like you did. But the way he got caught, the way he went down, reminded me a little bit of, I want to say, was it the way that J-Rock got knocked out by one of the Charlos? Similar punch.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was almost the exact punch in a very similar situation.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, yeah. Maybe yeah. I think Julian threw a right hand though. This guy threw a jab, but it was very similar in how it went. And the kid, you could see when he threw the jab, he was bracing for a different shot, because he went down into it, and you could see him kind of curl a little bit, you see him bracing, and the shot came from an angle that he didn't expect, and it was boom, caught him perfect. I was like, wow, that was a hell of a shot. That was a hell of a setup too.
Yeah, I mean, a counter-punch uppercut, one-punch knockout is one of the sexiest things in boxing, in my opinion. I mean, God Almighty. When executed perfectly, it is really, really special. He straight away, I don't know if you've seen his quotes after the fight, Anthony Dirrell saying he wants to fight Canelo next or he's going to retire. I don't think anyone wants to see that fight. All respect to Anthony Dirrell, been on the show, but no, I mean, God almighty, I don't want to see Canelo in with him. Elsewhere on the card, we had the Battle of the Jose's. We had Jose Gomez lose. He was undefeated as well, 12-0. He lost a unanimous decision over 8 to Jose Meza, who's now 8-6. That was an upset there. Elvis Rodriguez with a win as well. I'm not sure if it was an upset, but he was able to knock out in 5 rounds Juan Romero, who was undefeated, 14-0. Elvis Rodriguez, though, now 12-1 with a draw. Rancis Barthelemy now 29-1 with a draw. A TKO in round 2 against Gustavo Vittori, who I think was quite badly overmatched. He did well to knock him out early. I know Vittori had been knocked out in a few of his losses, but to get him out early like that, Barthelemy not really known as a puncher, but it just goes to show how overmatched I think Vittori was. And the main event, Canelo Plant. Canelo now 57-1 with 2 draws. It was his 60th fight as a pro. A TKO in round 11 against Caleb Plant, who loses his now 21-1. He loses, of course, his IBF World Super Middleweight title. He's now undisputed, Mr. Canelo. It's just crazy to think he started his pro career so young. I think he was about 15 when he turned over, and he's here having his 60th fight, and he appears to be, at his best. I mean, it's weird to see a guy 60 fights into a pro career looking their absolute best, but then again, I guess he probably didn't have that long amateur career that we see a lot of US guys, for example, having 200 fights before they turn pro. It probably burns out of them a little bit, means they can't go on to have that many pro fights, and if they did have that many pro fights, they wouldn't look as good as he does in his 60th pro fight. That might have been confusing, but anyways, just going to run through what I felt or thought about the fight really quickly, and then I'll come to you, Eddie. Round 1, good round for Caleb Plant. He didn't freeze. I was happy to see that. He was. I don't think he let the occasion get to him. I didn't think he ever would, to be honest, but some people do. I think Callum Smith did. Nice jabs. I liked the way he was working the jab. I felt that Canelo kind of gave away the round. I don't think he cared too much, but he didn't do anything. But what I will say, whenever Canelo feints, like, all fighters fall for almost every feint that he tries. I mean, the physical presence is scary for everyone he fights. As soon as he does a big feint, and guys just like, whoa, out the way of nothing. Round 2 I gave to Canelo. Round 3 I gave to Caleb Plant. So again, I've got that 2-1 to Caleb after 3. Some people already disagreeing with that scorecard, but I'll carry on. We saw a tiny cut open in the kind of same place as the face-off sunglasses incident for Caleb Plant. So I saw a little tiny cut, but they dealt with it, thankfully. It was a really close round, but I just like what Caleb was doing. He was making Canelo miss a lot of shots, which looked really weird and unusual to see Canelo miss like that. Again, he was landing his jab a lot, Caleb Plant, and anytime Canelo landed a nice shot, Caleb would land one himself straight away. Round 4, really, really close round. Again, Caleb was taking a lot on the gloves and arms, I felt. Nothing really hitting him clean around the head. He was staying in the pocket with Canelo and looking all right, if I'm being honest. Again, a little bit generous. I felt like I could have given that round to Plant. I felt he needed to let the right hand go a little bit more, though, not just rely on that left hand, but still, a beautiful jab he was popping out there in the 4th round. Could have been a 10-10, to be honest. I think I ended up giving that a 10-10. Round 5 I gave to Plant as well. Canelo didn't land anything clean the entire round. Caleb Plant was even doing the shoulder roll. I was wondering if he'd been watching that Floyd fight from years ago. His defense was unbreakable at times. Canelo was really, I wouldn't say struggling with landing a punch, but struggling with getting inside that guard. He was just throwing shots, at what was available, the arms and stuff like that. I liked it from Caleb Plant. Round 6, Canelo really started to up the pressure. It was like a switch, and he started to put hands on Plant a lot more. Canelo also was showing some lovely head movement himself. It was, for me, Canelo's best round at that point. Round 7, I felt Canelo was just getting the better of it. Plant wasn't unraveling, but Canelo seemed to have another gear that I wasn't sure Plant was able to match. I had it completely tied up after 7 rounds. I think 3 apiece with 1 round tied. Round 8 I gave to Canelo. Caleb was still having moments, but only really throwing singular shots. Round 9 I did give to Plant. He landed some beautiful shots, some head-snapping jabs, a few straight right hands that were working. So again, I'm tied up in round 9. Round 10 I gave to Canelo. Round 11, that's where it all came crashing down. A long left hook on the chin of Plant, right on the button. Down he went. His legs were all over the place. And when he got back up, he actually, I think, accidentally ran from one side of the ring to the other. It was like an injured animal or something, like after a tiger had bit one of his legs, and he just, ran from one part of, the grass to another part. He ran from one part of the ring to another part. He looked like he was there for the taking at that point, obviously. And yeah, Canelo obviously, went back to work, and with his accuracy, he was able to finish Plant. I think Canelo probably landed 5 or 6 punches that Plant didn't really have to take. I think the referee could have been a little bit quicker, maybe not even allowed it to carry on after that first knockdown. But we know Canelo is such a good finisher. I was gutted for Caleb not to hear the final bell after such a brave effort and such a good performance. I'm obviously a very extremely proud Brit, but I felt his performance was better than some of the champions that we've seen box Canelo, like a Saunders, like a Callum Smith. He was better than those guys, So I take my hat off to Caleb Plant, but yeah, it was quite unbelievable, the performance from Canelo, especially the way he switched it up around the midway point, and I did think he would actually stop Caleb Plant at some point. I wasn't sure it would get as far as round 11, but when he had him hurt, he took him out, and I've never seen him hurt someone and not take him out. That's why I say he's such a good finisher, so damn accurate, and the punches that he picks in those moments are just perfect, really. It was nice to see the pair embrace right after the fight, especially after quite a bitter build-up. What I could hear on the telly, I heard Canelo say, "I'm sorry for everything, you're a great fighter." He said, "You are a great fighter." He emphasized on that word great, which I liked. That was very respectful from him. And he said that Caleb's got a beautiful family. Obviously, Caleb said something about, he doesn't have a mum, his mum passed away. Canelo said he's sorry for everything, and he told him not to be sad. It was nice. Obviously, there's a tiny language barrier issue, but Canelo was being very, very respectful. He apologized straight away. He complimented Plant, called him a great fighter, said he had a great, beautiful family. That was nice to see. The pair then embraced with a hug. I like to see that sportsmanship. Good to see that the beef is certainly squashed. But yeah, undisputed now. Canelo looks better than ever. And again, when I went on Twitter, the scorecards that people had were all over the place. Some people had it 5-2 to Plant after round 7. Some other people had it 7-0 for Canelo. So I'm not sure what's a good card and what's a bad one. But anyways, enough of my rambling. Eddie, what did you make of it, my friend?
Honestly, I like your card. I think your card was as good as I think because me and Ed, at the time, basically, we had.
Just to reiterate, Eddie, I had it all square after round 9. I gave Canelo round 10, so I had him winning, and then obviously I had him winning by a point. Then in that last round, obviously, he got the stoppage. So at the point of the stoppage, I did have Canelo up by 1. Just to reiterate. Sorry to cut you off. Go on, Eddie.
No, that's right. So, and that's basically what we had. That's exactly what we were saying. I mean, I didn't really score it. But looking at the rounds, and a lot of people, I'm pretty sure, didn't really want to give him round 9. But I think he just did. He did that was a hell of a round he had in round 9, I thought. But just in general, Caleb Plant was doing things, that guys with a lot more experience than he would normally be doing. You understand what I'm saying? Like, he was doing stuff like, and I couldn't emphasize this enough, Canelo's left hook is a really serious weapon. So is his right hand, really, to be honest. He's just a dominant figure all the way around. But in this particular fight, he really couldn't utilize his right hand as well as he normally would because of the way that Caleb Plant was shoulder rolling. And he was doing it really well. So he kind of put it in his pocket because he just didn't really see a way to use it. But then with his left hook, he was then forcing Canelo to have to defend after he would throw one of his signature big left hooks. because every time, well, not every time, but the majority of times that I've seen, when Canelo would throw a hook and Caleb Plant was able to deal with it, he would immediately straight away come back with his right hand, counter right hand, bang. And it was like, damn, he's really like boxing out there. He's really doing, and his jab and some of the punches he was throwing like in combination wasn't necessarily meant to hurt, but meant to put his hands on him to get him uncomfortable and to keep him from continuing to press extra hard. You understand what I'm saying? So he had a lot of very, very good, timely little maneuvers and different things that he's done defensively, as well as some of the punches he threw. I just thought it was an extremely, extremely good performance. It's one of the best fights I've seen. One of the best fighters I've seen, or at least in terms of dealing with Canelo, and especially in recent time, because Canelo's been really dominant. You know, like Billy Joe did some good things toward the end before he got caught with the shot. I thought he was like starting to give Canelo a little bit of trouble, gave him a little bit of problems with some of the things he was doing, some of the shots he was throwing, the jabs and all, and with range and everything. But I think Caleb Plant did even better than that. Like, obviously, I felt like that fight was he still had a good shot where he could have, if he would have got to the final decision, we would have been asking questions like, hey, what's the score? You know what I mean? Like, we would think that, Canelo would, pretty sure Canelo would have started to, dominate a little bit toward the end. But all the way up until until about the 11th round, 11th round, you really start to think like, damn, could this kid actually win the fight? And it was looking like if he still had the juice for the last 2 rounds, man, he could have, but he got caught with the shot. No need to belabor that. It's, that part happens, and, Canelo is the man. And not to just continue to talk about how great Caleb Plant did, but just how great of a fighter Canelo is. Canelo is an all-time great. Like, you got to really say it. Whether you like him or not, you got to say he's an all-time great. You know what I mean? You only lost to one guy, and that one guy being another all-time great. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of people right now, I don't want to say a lot of people, I don't really know, but we'll, throw a little shade. You can't match him up with, different older guys like, like the Chavezes and those guys, and even Floyd, you know what I mean? Even though Floyd beat him, and just say his resume is really, really solid. He's definitely definitely going to be going to the Hall, and I think he has. And honestly, for him, it's like, where does he go from here? What's the next challenge? You know what I mean? It's like everything else is like either you're going into a situation with a fighter that you're basically you're behind the 8 ball going in because you're already supposed to dominate him, but supposed to beat him. You know what I mean? And I feel like going back to Triple G at this point, would it even be a good idea? He's getting up in age. I mean, I don't know how he's going to perform. You know what I'm saying? It's like his legacy really can only be tarnished, I think, at this point, more so than benefits. Like, I just think he's done so much already, and he's been a lot of different places at different weight classes. He done gone up to fight at 75. Now, he's dominating 68, was basically dominating 60. So it's kind of hard to see where he's going to go from here. But I'm kind of excited to see what decision he makes and whether he's going to like go after the Charlos, Benavidez, or I even heard something with Iturbide, which I don't know about that because that dude's just kind of like an animal. But anyway, great fight. I'm happy that I was able to see it and witness that greatness on both ends. And I think both guys, and one thing I said before the fight, I was like, Caleb Plant, the main focus, because I just really didn't see him beating Canelo, but the main focus for him, I felt like, in my mind anyway, was for his stock to go up. That's all I was really, really, really banking on, is that his stock would go up. And, he would do well and at least give himself an opportunity to be, do something great after the fight too. You know what I'm saying? And I think he accomplished that without a doubt. And like I said, the sky's the limit for both.
Yeah, well said, Eddie, well said. But yeah, that brings the review part to a close. The final thing for me to do just before we wrap up part 1 is to welcome our special guest on this week's podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated WBO world #1 ranked super middleweight. It is, of course, Mr. Zach Parker. Zach, welcome back on the show, my man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, mate. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure having you on, Zach. So we last spoke back in July. It was fight week for the fight against Kuzanov. I think we spoke about 3 or 4 days before that. It was an excellent win, obviously. But let's talk about what you did on Saturday night in Birmingham. A win over Marcus Morrison. You become the first man to stop him. Afterwards, you climbed up onto the corner post and said, "Easy bleep work." Tell me about your performance. You definitely made it look easy.
Yeah, I just wanted to show everyone levels, and there's obviously levels in this game, and I want to be boxing for titles now, and with the performance like that, you see him against he had really good fights like Chris Eubank and he's been boxed for titles, and obviously I had a lot better performance against him, and I think it's time. I get my chance.
And I always felt that you would knock Morrison out. On paper, obviously, I think a lot of, let's say, casual fans probably thought, well, if Eubank Jr. couldn't knock Morrison out and no one else has managed to do it, Zach probably won't be able to do it either. And you'd have to respect that opinion. The guy had never been stopped. Did you ever feel before the fight that maybe, just maybe, this could go all 10, or did you have no doubt you'd get him out of there?
Yeah, obviously he's a tough opponent, and I've obviously trained for the whole 10 to 12 rounds, but the way I've been training in the gym and the way I've been sparring, I'm hurting people with when I've got big sparring gloves on and head guards and that. So when I put the small gloves on, and it's no head guards, no protection. So yeah, I thought I'd probably get him out there. I thought it might have been a bit later, but as soon as he caught him with that body shot, and then I seen his face start to screw up a bit, and I was like, oh yeah, I got to keep going down to the body instead.
Yeah, and those body shots were ruthless and brutal. People get the measuring stick out, of course, and they compare this win over Morrison to Chris Eubank's win over Morrison, yours obviously being far more impressive. Is that a smart fight for you to take, Zach? I know you mentioned you'd like to wipe him out, but it's a fact that you'd have a lot to lose from your perspective, being in that #1 spot, surely knocking on Canelo's door now.
Yeah, well, obviously I want a bigger name. Canelo wants to fight these absolute massive names, and who bring obviously I'm #1 and I'm entry for the WBO, but he wants to be fighting the top names who've been boxing the top guys, and that's what I want. I want to box these top guys. Obviously Chris Eubank's got a name for himself for his dad, and he's had a couple of good wins against James Gale and that, but I beat him every day of the week, so in my opinion, and that's what I plan to show. If we ever did box, I'd prove that I'm meant to be up there with the best, and yeah, that's what we're trying to push for, and hopefully it will get made one day.
And do you feel, Zach, as if you're the best super middleweight in the country, better than the likes of Ryder, Saunders, Eubank Jr., even though he's pretty much gone back down to middleweight?
Yeah, 100%. If you look at all the other super middleweights, they're all obviously getting on a bit now, and I think I think there's only one above me in the box rack, and that's John Ryder, and he's pretty much a middleweight as well. If you most is crazy in middleweight, he's only come up for a bit as super middleweight. I'm the most natural super middleweight and the biggest, and obviously I ain't had the chance of to show against really top guys, but that's what I've been trying to push for. We should seen the roast of what we've been asking before Marcus Morrison. We asked loads of different top guys in celeb Truax and David Lemieux and that, and none of them wanted to know. But yeah, I think we're almost there to getting these massive fights and hopefully bring some big fights back to Derby.
And I want to ask you as well, Zach, at what point in your career, or what fight perhaps, did you feel in your mind that you'd surpassed the level of those other guys domestically that I mentioned? Or maybe I shouldn't say level, because they've boxed at the highest level. You're obviously yet to do that. But what point did you think to yourself, I'm better than Saunders, I'm better than Riders, these type of guys?
Well, I've just got self-belief, and obviously Saunders is obviously an amazing boxer and did a lot at middleweight. But you see like Saunders and Ryder, they're not natural super middleweights. They're not like, you know what I mean? They ain't like up there with the top boys, and that's why I just want my chance to prove it. And obviously, I know what I do in the gym every single day, and everyone else knows what I do in the gym, and I'm just waiting for my chance to obviously prove it. And obviously, I boxed Mark Morrison the other day, and I think that's one step towards like I'm past these like British level fighters, and put me on there with the big boys now, and I'll show you what I can do against them. The better, like I said on the weekend, I said the better the opponent, the better I step up. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens in the next fight.
And you mentioned about what you're doing in the gym. I want to ask you this. Who have you sparred, Zach? Because, you know, being in the media, I hear a lot of top secret sparring stories all the time. But I can honestly say I haven't really heard anything about your sparring. You're very, very low key. Is there any big names you sparred with?
Yeah, obviously I keep my sparring like I don't really want to spar with all the top people in my division, just in case I face them one day. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But yeah, I had some good sparring this time. The start of the camp I was sparring with obviously Lennox, he's British super middleweight champion, and then sparring with the likes of Shakan Pitters from light heavy, and then obviously Nathan Heaney, he's quite a good little boxer himself. So yeah, I don't try and spar people in my own division, just in case we can meet one day. You know what I mean? So obviously before that, there was like Tara and Zuga, Skoglund. I sparred all of them like when up and running when I was boxing on the World Super Series, and I think Skoglund, not Skoglund, Tara and Zuga was a world champion at the time, and I was meant to go over do like 8 rounds. I jumped in there for the first 6 on the first day, and then they said, "Oh, we don't want them more sparring off you," and so it just shows, you know what I mean? So. Yeah, I try and keep my sparring low key though. Yeah,
you do. And I will just tell you a real quick 10-second story. I had Roy Jones Jr. on the podcast a few months ago, and he told me of a time where he was sparring a guy in the gym, and suddenly after 2 rounds he realised, you know what, I'm going to end up boxing this guy for a title one day. So he jumped out the ring, and everyone said, "What are you doing?" Like even his own dad said, "What are you doing, son?" And he said, No, I'm going to be boxing this guy for a title one day. Spar's over. They only did 2 rounds. A couple years later, they end up boxing for a world title. Roy Jones Jr. knocks him out, and he puts it down to jumping out the ring when they were sparring. You know,
you don't want to be sparring people who you're going to be boxing in the future. You can't be teaching them all your tricks and that.
Exactly.
I always say they can face my tricks at one time, and then that's when we'll box them. Then they'll know them. They don't want to be giving all my little tricks of the trade away just in a little sparring session. What don't mean nothing. It's all about that one night, and when everyone's watching, when the lights are on, when the big lights are on, and the cameras are watching. So yeah, you got to save for the big nights.
Very, very, very wise stuff there. When do you want to be out fighting again, Zach?
Well, I think I've been told it was to enjoy my Christmas and that, love, and then maybe in March time, and I think they're on about trying to get me like a homecoming bill in Derby. There's a nice little venue run next door to Pride Park. I think it's called the Velodrome, and also like 3,000 or 4,000 there. So hopefully March time in Derby.
Lovely, that would be excellent. And just a fun fact for the listeners, Zach has become the first man to stop Rohan Murdoch. In his very next fight, he becomes the first man to stop Vaughan Alexander. In his very next fight, he becomes the first man to stop Sherzod Kuzanov. And in the very next fight, becomes the first man to stop Marcus Morrison. 4 guys that had never been knocked out. You've stopped them one after the other.
Yeah, it's a good little record, that is.
It's beautiful, my friend. And you said you'd be...
I like performing for the fans, that's what it is. They all love knockouts, so I try and deliver.
Yeah, you have been delivering. I mean, that's an incredible run. You said you'd be watching the Canelo fight in a casino somewhere. I'm not sure if you ended up in the casino, but did you get to see the fight? What did you make of it?
No, I didn't get to see it on the night, but I've watched it back since. And Yeah, I thought it was an alright fight. Obviously, Canelo's Canelo, and he's obviously best pound for pound. But I think Plant having a bit too much room, went back to the ropes a bit too quick. Obviously, it's a lot harder when you're in there with him, but you can't give him too much room, I don't think. And I think that's what he did. He tried to run too quick, and then it made it easy for Canelo.
I feel like Plant did pretty good though.
Yeah, he did good. It's good. Obviously, that's the way he boxes. Though. That's the thing. But if you look at Canelo with the way he boxes, way Golovkin boxing, you can't give him that much room. Otherwise, when you get, that's why he wants you back on them ropes, so you can't run anymore. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that's the way. Obviously, Plant boxes. He boxes quite well, but you can just see when Canelo's in there, he knows what he's doing already. He knew where to place him all the time, and whenever he wanted to fight, he was going to fight. And whenever he didn't want to fight, he could just move back. So
yeah, when
there's a lot of different ways of looking at it.
Yeah. When he's applying the pressure and he's got you backing up, you're in trouble. He's in full control, it seems. I think that's why they want to see him in with a light heavyweight who can push him back, perhaps. Just before we wrap it up, Zach, I want to say if you've got a closing message for the listeners, you can say whatever you like. And I also want to remind you to change your Twitter and Instagram bios. They still say 21-0, 15 KOs.
Oh yeah, and I ain't actually seen that. Actually, I forgot to change that. I'll change that first. But yeah, just make sure you all just keep watching my career. Obviously, got social medias. Zach Parker Boxer, ZACH Parker Boxer, and then I'm just trying to deliver good fights for the fans. So just watch out for me.
Absolutely. Listen, Zach, it's always an honour speaking with you, my friend. Thank you for your time. Congrats again on another spectacular win, and I hope we can speak again in the near future.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, mate.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. Going to start here with the undercard for Crawford versus Porter, November 20th. If you didn't know the date, we get to see, I think the guy's name is Esquiva Falcao. He was a good amateur and stuff like that. I think he's being a little bit fast-tracked as a pro, if I'm not mistaken. He gets in there with a guy called Patrice Volney. That's a title eliminator there at middleweight, IBF title eliminator there. Also on the card, we get to see Janibek Alimkhanuly. Can't remember who he boxed, but I've heard of the name. He boxed someone, I think, last time out, or the time before that was a good fighter. But anyway, he gets in with former world champion and friend of the show, Hassan N'Dam. And also, I think we've got a fight between two undefeated lightweights. We've got Raymond Muratalla against Stephen Ortiz. So again, that is the Crawford-Porter undercard, November 20th. Some good fights there. A big one that's been made in the UK, Hamza Shiraz, the undefeated 154 prospect who's now training out there in the 10 Goose boxing gym, in Joe Gooson's gym with Ricky Funes. He gets in with former British champion Mr. Bradley Skeet, friend of the show. That one's going to be on the undercard of Lyndon Arthur and Anthony Yard at the Copper Box Arena, December the 4th. That's going to be a brilliant fight. I hope Bradley wins that, man. Bradley's one of the nicest guys. He hasn't had it easy. Moving out now to this one takes place December the 3rd, which I believe is a Friday. It takes place in Bilbao. We have Kerman Leharaga, who, by the way, was in one of the best fights of this year. He gets in defending his European super welterweight title against Jack Flatley. That one again in Bilbao. A few guys on the undercard. We've got Campbell Hatton as well fighting on that one. In other news, we have it's been officially announced now, Devin Haney against Joseph Jojo Diaz. That should be a great fight. Cannot wait for that one. That again is December 4th at the MGM. We've got Conor Benn. His fight has been announced now. He's taking on Chris Algieri. That's going to be taking place in Liverpool Saturday, December 11th on DAZN. It's a steady step up. A lot of people are kind of analysing this, saying, why does Conor Benn not fight any punchers? I don't know. I'm starting to see a bit of a pattern there as well. But all the best to both guys there. Hopefully we'll have Chris Algieri on the show either next week or the week after. In other news, Probellum, the company that is being spearheaded by Richard Schaefer, he's announced a fight card. He's got Sonny Edwards defending his world flyweight title against Jason Mama, I think his name is. That one, of course, a defense of Edwards' IBF title there. And on the undercard of that, we see John Real Casimero defending his WBO bantamweight world title against the UK's very own and friend of the show, former world champion Paul Butler. All the best to Paul Butler there. But that's a tough ask. He hasn't really looked great recently, Paul Butler. What else do we have? We've got Jay Harris. His fight's been announced. It's going to be on an MTK Global show. He gets in with Hector Gabriel Flores. The date of that, by the way, just trying to remember, November 26th on the card as well. Ben Crocker, Sean McGoldrick, the return of Akeem Ennis-Brown after that controversial loss last time out to Sammy Maxwell. And in other news, this is a good one as well. It's for the undercard of Gervonta Davis against, is it Isaac Cruz he's boxing? On the undercard we've got the return of Sergei Derevianchenko. He gets in with Carlos Adames. I really like that fight there at middleweight. I think Adames has moved up to middleweight. I'm sure he was at 154. And we've got Eduardo Ramirez getting in with Miguel Mariaga. And a brilliant fight as well. This is a big step up here, and I like this fight a lot. Sebastian Fundora, the welterweight contender who is about 6'5", he gets in there with Sergio Garcia, the undefeated Spaniard who really beat Ted Cheeseman up. And if you ever watched that fight, the UK listeners, if you've ever watched that fight where Ted Cheeseman fought Sergio Garcia is a very skillful guy. Reminds me a little bit of Sandor Martin, the way he's built his kind of record up. Hasn't really boxed anyone, but then he boxed Ted Cheeseman, and oh my god, so many skills. His footwork was brilliant, judge's distance. He had all these tricks up his sleeve, just like Sandor Martin when he upset Mikey Garcia. This is a tough fight for Sebastian Fundora, but he has been one of my favourite prospects over the last couple of years. So if he can pull off the win, then oh my god, it's big. Because people like David Benavidez are tipping Fundora to be a future world champion. And I tell you what, he's been knocking guys out. Those tall, skinny guys don't always find the knockouts. He's been doing it. He's a very exciting fighter to watch. That's it though for the news part of the show. Rolling on now to the preview part. We're going to start here tomorrow night at the York Hall in Bethnal Green, London, the Mecca of UK boxing. On BT Sport Live, we have David Adelaide 7-0 in an 8-rounder against Dominic Musil, who's 6-3. On the undercard, we have George Fox, the son of Don Charles. He's 4-0 as a pro in a 6-rounder, no opponent just yet for him. This one takes place at the Leeds United FC Banqueting Suite at Elm Road. Over here, Jack Bateson, 14-0, fighting here for the vacant English Super Bantamweight title against Ramez Mahmoud, who is 11-1. That's over 10 rounds there. On the undercard, Darren Tetley as well, a fighter who, again, has had a bit of a tough career. I think hasn't really had the breaks he deserved. I remember him losing a fight. In fact, no, I'm getting him confused. I think he's got a brother. I think I'm getting confused with him. But anyway, he's on the card here. 20-2 his record. Danny Murrell, he's a good friend of Dave Allen. He's 1-0. He's fighting again. He's been a year out. He's been out the ring a year since his pro debut. He's back here having his second fight. Ellis Hopkins as well on the undercard. Moving out now to Germany, we've got Mike Perez fighting here, the Cuban, 25-3 with a draw. He gets in with Jose Ulrich, who's 17-4. We've got Lemroy Thomas, 24-5 with a draw against Marcos Antonio Amalda, who's 21-10. Random card there. Moving out now to the Sky Dome in Coventry, West Midlands. This one's going to be on Saturday night on Channel 5. River Wilson Bent, 10-0, gets in with Tyler Denny, 13-2 with 2 draws. That one there for the vacant English middleweight title. We've got the Irish twins, I'm not sure if they're twins actually, the Irish brothers, Aaron McKenna, 12-0 in a 10-rounder against Edem Beaker, who's 10-1. That one there for the vacant WBC Youth world middleweight title. We've got Stephen McKenna on the card as well, 9-0. We've got Casey Benjamin, 13-1 with a draw. Isaac Chamberlain, 13-1, no opponent just yet. Idris Virgo, 10-0 with a draw, no opponent just yet. Tommy Welch, the son of former heavyweight contender Scott Welch, he's 5-0 as a pro, no opponent just yet. Mick Hennessy Jr., 7-1 with a draw. I'm not sure if I mentioned him already. You've got Brett McGinty as well, 3-0. And Shakam Pitters, 16-1, former British light heavyweight champion. He gets in with Reece Cartwright, who is that the guy that I thought I was talking about before? No, see, I'm getting very confused. I'm sure there's a few different Cartwrights. There's a Reece Cartwright. There's a a Darren. Okay, Darren. I'm getting very confused. Anyways, whatever. Shakam Pitter, 16-1 in a 10-rounder against Reece Cartwright there for the vacant WBC International Light Heavyweight title. All the best to both men, basically. Moving out now to Sheffield at the Sheffield Arena, Yorkshire, United Kingdom. This one's going to be on DAZN. Kid Galahad tops the bill. He defends his IBF World Featherweight title against former champion Kiko Martinez, 42-10 with 2 draws. I'm not sure if he's coming off a loss. He's probably gone back to Spain and picked up an easy win or two, but I remember his very close fight with Zelfa Barrett. A lot of people saying he won that one. Can he give Kid Galahad any problems though? I'm not so sure. 28-1 Kid Galahad, coming off that brilliant performance against Jazza Dickens. On the undercard, defending his EBU European Cruiserweight title, Chris Billam-Smith, 13-1, one of my favourite fighters to watch. He gets in with Dylan Breguion, who's 11-1 with a draw. We've got Terry Harper, 11-0 with a draw. Defending her WBC and IBO World Super Featherweight female world titles against Alicia Baumgardner from the United States, 10-1. She's been screaming for a big fight for a long time. I think she said she's going to knock Terry Harper out. We shall see. That one's over 10 2-minute rounds. A big step up here for a guy called Dante Dixon, who's 5-0. He's in an 8-rounder against Jordan McCorry, 19-7 with a draw. I believe Jordan McCorry lost to Archie Sharp, and I think he also lost to Sam Bowen. But, he's been out the ring, I think, for a while. But it's a big step up for a guy who's only 5-0 in Dante Dixon. Could be interesting. Moving out now to the Footprint Center in Phoenix, Arizona, USA. We've got on the undercard, Jose Benavidez Jr., 27-1, I should say. My apologies to the Benavidez family. That one loss, of course, came to Terence Crawford. He's in a 10-rounder against Francisco Emmanuel Torres, who's 17-3. David Benavidez, 24-0 in a 10-rounder, no title on the line, of course. He gets in with Kyrone Davis, who was a bit of a last-minute replacement, of course, for Jose Uzcategui. He gets in 16-2 with a draw. We mentioned that the draw came against Anthony Durrell a few fights ago, and he's never been stopped, Kyrone Davis, so I'm sure David Benavidez will be looking to do that and stop him. Moving out now to the Honda Center. Again, this one's going to be on DAZN, so there are fights on loads of channels. I just want to run back through that. Friday night, BT Sport. Saturday night, Channel 5. Saturday night at the same time as Channel 5, we've got DAZN for the Galahad card. Then, Saturday night in the States, we've got Showtime. That's going to be the Benavidez card. And also clashing with that, Saturday night on DAZN, we have Jaime Munguia, 37-0 in a 12-rounder against the Philly, one of the hardest men in Philly, Gabriel Rosado. You'd want him on your team in a street fight. 26-13 with a draw, coming off that sensational win last time out when he was losing that fight, taking big shots to that guy who I think had knocked everyone out, had 100% knockout percentage, and he got knocked out by Rosado. It was an unbelievable upset earlier on this year. Munguia, I think, was on the same card. They're getting it on there. It's over 12 rounds, like I say, for the WBO Intercontinental Middleweight title. All the best to Gabriel Rosado. God, you just can't count him out. He keeps coming and coming and coming. He's like a bad smell. You can't get rid of him. And now, Wednesday, this is next Wednesday. By the time the show goes out next week, this fight would have already taken place. So here we are previewing it. Tim Tszyu, the son of Costa Tszyu, 19-0 in a 12-rounder against Takeshi Inoue, who's 17-1 with a draw. I'm not sure if he's any relation to Naoya Inoue, but it is for the WBO Asia Pacific Super Welterweight title and the WBO Global Super Welterweight title. Always good to see Tim Tszyu fight. I tell you what, out of all the boxers, you know, the famous ex-world champion boxers that have got sons, Campbell Hatton and Ricky Hatton, Conor Benn and Nigel Benn, Chris Eubanks Sr. and Jr., and all the rest of them, he's one of the most special ones. You know, he looks unbelievable, Tim Tszyu. So I'm definitely going to be tuning in, or finding a way to tune in next Wednesday, which will probably be around about kind of lunchtime or maybe even morning UK time. So it's going to be hard to watch if you're in the States. It's going to be at a really weird hour. But there's a lot to watch on the weekend in the States. So I'm expecting everyone that's listening to me now to have a very busy weekend, keeping up with all the action. That is it, though, for the preview part of the show. In part one, we did the reviewing. We brought our special guest, Zach Parker, the #1 ranked WBO super middleweight in the world, obviously in line to face Canelo. Then in part two we did the news. I've just wrapped up the previewing. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 317 of the Box Hard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A huge thank you to our special guest, the undefeated #1 ranked super middleweight in the world by the WBO, Mr. Zach Parker. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to you, the listeners. Thanks once again for tuning into this week's show. There has been one piece of news break whilst we've been recording the show. Chris Eubank Jr. and Liam Williams will be fighting on December 11th in Cardiff. That's going to be an absolute cracker. I cannot wait for that. So many great fights from now till Christmas. We are being spoiled as boxing fans. But that's about everything from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we shall see you all again next week.